Number 2. Light comes on. It's jammed. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear that. So something's definitely not right inside this one. So let's try. One, 2. Three. Again, they're all T8. This one, it looks like you need to pull this label off before you're going to get the case apart, so that will have to be replaced later. You see this one's got a fair bit of paint and use on it, so it's get that out of the way. Let's see what we've got here. It always gets stuck around there. I can't see anything holding this part together, but it oh, there we go. Certainly, there we go. Tight fit. Oh, at that end. Ah, look, they've put glue under it. I bet I already knew that. I bet I found that before. What have we got? Oh, there's the switch. That's lighting that up. Nothing is doing anything here. Oh, and the switch goes down into the bottom there. So they've changed the design of the switch compared to number 1. Right, that can come out of there. This. Oh, of course, the glue is sticking it in tight. Come on, you can do it. Come on, let go, let go. Does not want to let go under there. That's a very tight fit. It's only a bit of double-sided tape, I think, but it's very tight. That's impressive. Ah, there we go. Felt it give there. Right, double-sided tape's given there. Now, LED in there. I can't remember how that comes out, so we'll just... oh, we'll leave that in there for now. Oh, there it pulls out. Let's just put that. Ooh, that's not good. What's that? I can see a piece of broken red plastic. Is that why this was jamming? Right, well, we'll have a look at that in a minute. Right, so that's there. So there's our piece of broken plastic. I need this. Right, so we've got 2 halves we need to clean. Switch. Ah! There we are. Now, I think that the idea of that is to lock. I'm not quite sure how it works, but I'm pretty sure at some point the idea is that that can be there and the switch can slide, this bit slides on that bit, and then in the middle position it would get stuck, so you now know that you're in forward or reverse, and then you move over to here and you're in forward or reverse, and then there's a piece of plastic that sticks up in the middle, and I suspect that's it. See, can we hold it in the right place and get a clue? Oh yes, that looks like it fits there. Not sure whether it would be worth putting it back though, because it just snaps off, it can jam again. I don't know how it quite got underneath there though, that's a somewhat ridiculous place to get to, but obviously it managed it. Right, so those all need to be cleaned. This oh, it's an LG battery, 18650, and this time pink is the positive and blue is the negative. I think we'll take the battery off like we've done with previous ones. If we disconnect the battery, we can charge the battery separately, and then we know. Now, so that's not doing anything, but that could be, oh, it's stuck in the middle position, so if we push that down there, then it doesn't do anything, so it jams. But the motor can move, so it's not locked. I'll pull this up. So the motor itself is not turning, so it could be the battery is completely flat. So we'll get this battery off and we'll test it and we'll see. It's funny, I'd swear they must have used leaded solder on these battery connections, whereas it seems to be unleaded on the circuit boards. Oh, that's off. I think that's just fallen out from under there. Right, move that out of the way. A bit of broken plastic can go over there. Go over there. Right, let's see what our meter says this is. Is it completely dead? No. That should have been enough to make that motor spin. Interesting. Right, well we'll put that on charge anyway and we'll have a closer look at the motor then. Right, so that needs to go on charge. So they've got to be scrubbed. So why? They're protecting that. That's working okay. What's that there? Is that a safety switch? Or is that working? Ooh. Not sure what that is now. Let's go back to this. This was plus. This was minus. But I can't hold it on now, can I? I can't hold it in the right place. Right, now what was that? So that's just doing that. Does that need that pressed? Oh no, so when that's pressed, the light works. when it's not pressed, the light doesn't work. We haven't got, but that on its own being pressed doesn't turn the light on. Ooh. But we haven't got any movement of the motor at all. Can't see clearly into there. I mean, it's turning, I'm turning it with my fingers. So that is turning. But it doesn't appear to be working. Where's the easiest place to take this motor off? Probably there. It could be there, but I think probably there is going to be the easiest spot. Let's get that on there. Come on now, that's it. Hold on that. This onto here. Come on, pull through. Oh, nearly. There we go. That's the circuit board off. Oh, I can see the brushes in there. I don't know how well they show up on there, but there's one there and one there, so we can see the brushes. There's a red dot there, so I presume the red dot is the red dot there. So why are you not spin? Test the motor with one of my little. These are just one of those in there. Right, that's got the red button on it, so that should be plus, maybe. Motor's working fine. So the problem is not the motor. Let's put a little drop of oil on it while we're here. Tiny little drop on there. Little drop on there. Give it a bit more juice. Oh, it didn't start. Oh, that's interesting. Is there a dead spot? Oh, it's starting every time now. That definitely did not start straight away. Is there something caught in there? You can hear it's running okay. Oh, there it goes, stopped again. Oh, is that just the terminals touching? Oh, that's fallen off. Great connectors. Oh, it's got a fair bit of power. Right, well, we'll stop there like that then for that. So the motor's working, so we need to find out what's going on here. That is a complicated circuit board for such a simple little thing. Right, I hope I've got enough of this in the shot for it to make sense. I've got 18650 power supply coming in here, so we've got 3.8 volts somewhere around there. I don't know exactly what it is, and these are on the motor output terminals, so that will tell us the voltage that's coming out of the motor output terminals. Now if we press just one switch here, we get a red light but nothing else. But if we press this switch plus the little micro switch above it, we get minus 3.75, and we get the yellow LED coming on, and we get a green LED which appears to be telling us which direction we're moving in. If we now move this to the other side and we press this, we still get nothing, but we get a red LED in the middle. But if we press this and this one up here, we now get plus 3.68, the other green LED is on, and of course this LED lights up. So it would appear nothing wrong with the circuit. The circuit is working fine, unless there's a problem with the current getting through, but certainly the voltage is fine, so that should be enough to run the motor. So it seems I slightly misunderstood this. Battery's back on, motor's back on. When this switch moves, which would be the first one to move as the switch comes in, that turns the LED on. When the top of the switch has got pushed a little bit further, that works the motor. Change direction. Seems to be working quite happily now, so maybe there was just a bit of plastic or dirt got inside the motor, but it all seems okay at the moment. I think as this had that piece of plastic caught in it, it might be an idea to have a look at this. And that's the central drive gear, so that has got to go back on the motor. There's no obvious sign of anything wrong with it. Oop. Another set of cogs underneath, I wasn't expecting that. It doesn't look like we need to disturb that bit. And that doesn't look like it needs to be disturbed either. That all looks perfectly happy. I doubt these even need cleaning, they look fine. Yeah, that looks like new. So I think most of this is going to be fine the way it is. Perhaps we'll put a tiny little bit more grease in there. A little bit of dirt around the top there, but it's almost nothing, so I don't think that's anything to worry about. I think we'll just put a tiny little bit more grease on these bits, but very little. It looks like it's got plenty of grease. That's gone right down. Tiny bit more grease on them, but again I don't think they need much. It's funny, you can do this sometimes, it just slots straight down into place first go, and other times, oh there we go, it's a struggle. Go on, go on. tiny bit more grease on there, but again I don't think it really needs very much. Alright, there's a little bit of dirt on the top of that, but I don't think that's going to matter much. We can just wipe that off with a cloth. I mean, not even if that is, sure if that is dirt, it can be dried grease. I'll just give that a little wipe. And this could just go back there, and we should be okay. Ready to put it back onto the motor. Assuming that we can get it to sit back in there where it's supposed to go. It doesn't want to go, but it will. Oh, there we go. Gotcha. Again, a tiny little bit more grease in there, but not much. Let's give that a wipe at the top. Don't want grease all over the motor. Right, that just needs to go eventually onto there. Come on, where are you? Let's find the right spot. Oh, there we are. That will sit like that. Oh, you're not wanting to turn. Has that not gone in properly? Let's try turning that. Oh. That's jamming up. Yeah, I'll have to have another look at that then. Right, there's something wrong with these three, the top ones, where they're driven by this, which is the motor pinion. That's metal, they're plastic, so if anything's damaged, obviously it's going to be those. I'll just put a little bit of alcohol on them, see if we can clean them up a little bit. They don't need to be spotless, but if I just help get some of the grease off them, and then I'll have a really close look, because clearly there is something not quite right with those. I think just a paintbrush will probably be all it needs. It's only a little bit of grease. But it looks like what happened was part of the switch broke, flew up into the space occupied by the motor and somehow got into this spot up here where the gears are, and of course it jammed one of these cogs, or maybe two of these cogs, or three of these cogs. I don't think you could jam three of them at one go, but it wouldn't have done any of them any good, even if it jammed one of them, I shouldn't think. The outer ring that they run on, I suppose, I don't know what that one's called, I don't know if that's the sun gear or whatever it is called, and these are the planets, but not sure. But the outer ring is metal and the middle drive gear is metal, so it's highly unlikely that the metal gear got damaged. So I think it's almost certain that something's not quite right with these plastic gears. but they don't look too bad, so I think it might be possible that they can recover. I haven't seen anything broken. Right, I don't know how well this is possibly going to show, but if you run this metal gear around this plastic gear, it more or less runs round okay, which would suggest that that gear is alright. If I run, I think it was this one, round, if you look, see what happens there? As I come round, it lifts up in the air. I don't know if it will show on the video, but that gap there between the teeth is not the right size. And then this gap here is too big and it fits in easy. Then it goes back to being perfectly okay. And then all the way around here it's perfectly okay, and then when it gets somewhere around here it doesn't quite sit properly. It's not quite the same with these as it is with the others, but it's not too bad, it's fairly close. Now this one though, I noticed just now that as you bring this one round, there is something very obviously wrong just at that point there. That will not mesh at all. So when that turns, it forces the drive pinion to move. The teeth are not meshed, and then that one falls into there, and then it carries on okay. So at that particular spot there, again I'm not sure how well I can show it, but this tooth, this one here, is bent too far that way away from this one. So this gap here is bigger than that gap there. I'm not quite sure what I can do about it, because I suspect if I can warm this up a little bit I might be able to get it to go back to where it should be, because it doesn't look like there's a lot wrong with it. And it's the same with this one here. That gap there is okay, this gap over here is okay, this gap here is too big, and this gap here is a tiny bit too small. So there's again a slight distortion. Now I can't see that distortion on this. This one doesn't seem to have that distortion on it, so I'm guessing that this one survived and didn't get damaged, and these two, they did get slightly damaged by whatever happened. And whatever happened was presumably that bit of plastic getting caught in there. So I think it might be possible, because of the way this cog runs around, it might be possible to encourage these to go back where they should be, because that's the point where it will jam. So it literally is, I just need to move this tooth fractions of a millimetre to one side, and I need to do it on both of them, but obviously I need to do it without damaging the cogs. Right, I found a screwdriver bit which is not exactly the right size and shape, but it's very close, because you can see, look. So I can put that in between each tooth, and it's a tight fit, but it's not an impossibly tight fit. Oh, you see that time it fell off. So I can push that down, and that's, I think that's called the root at the bottom there, and it goes down into the root fairly okay. And there, it's too loose, way too loose. There, a bit loose. When I get over here, I can see signs that that's all is not well. That doesn't look at all right there. And even here, that doesn't look at all right. And then again, that's too loose. That's a little bit loose. So there's obviously some deformation all around here. But I can push that in, and obviously it is too tight. And then I can push it in one next to it, and again it's a bit too tight. That one's too loose, that one is a bit too tight, that one's not too bad, and so on. So I can very slightly manipulate these, but you can see there's one that's, well, much tighter than it needs to be, and there's a gap that's much too big. So I think this is the area. That one's loose there. So I think this whole area across here, and looking from underneath, again it might not show, but this, the way the light catches this tends to suggest that this is somehow slightly crooked or not the same as the other teeth. So I'm not quite sure what the deal with that is. So I don't actually know if I can get these to sit back where they should sit, or whether all that's going to happen is if I lever them, they're going to snap. But when I think that with the Black & Decker one of these I could never get hold of any spare parts, I don't know what the situation would be with a Bosch one. But what I'll do is I'll keep trying, and I might try and put a little bit of heat onto this as well and see if that helps. But there is definitely something odd there in the way the light catches it, but it might not show up on the camera. And this one I'm not so sure. This one, it's, no, I think that one's more or less okay. It's just that tiny little spot there that gets a little bit tight. So this one I think almost will fix itself. Now I think if I were to run these against each other in a fairly tight fit for a little while, the friction from the metal against the plastic may well warm the plastic up a little bit and encourage all of these teeth to sit in exactly the right order. So I might try to arrange this so that it spins on the lathe and just rub against each other and see if that would help put them back in the right alignment. This one, as far as I can tell, seems to be okay most of the time, but this one, there is a big difference. As soon as it gets round here, there is a problem here, and I can't see that I'm going to be able to get away from that. That is definitely some sort of damage right at that point there, and that's, as you can see, a very tight fit, and then the one next to it is a loose fit. So that bit there, I'm not sure what we're going to do, but again I might try running these against each other and see if that will actually force them to run. I mean, you obviously couldn't do that if these were plastic, but with one metal and one plastic, it's just possible that you could force them to run where they should run. I spent a couple of hours last night going round these, first with this, and trying to get a uniform gap like that round them. And then I found one that was a little bit more bent than the others, so I used these little needle nose pliers and straightened it back as best I could. And then I spent the rest of the time, that one's a metal gear that drives them, like running this around, trying to decide if they still needed any extra work. And they're not perfect by a long way, but they are more or less okay. Now I think it's possible to mount one of these fixed in the lathe and one of these spinning or free to spin, and then allow it to turn, and that might help just sort of polish off and make the edges of these a little bit better. They might recover. I'm not going to bother because I think it's almost good enough like that, because once it's back in this housing, they are rubbing against metal on the outside and metal on the inside. So I think it's possible that if they will turn, they will wear themselves back in okay. I should add that before putting any pressure on these, I did warm them up. I left them sitting on a hot radiator for an hour so that they were much warmer and much less likely to break, or at least that's what I was hoping. So I'm just going to assemble these back in there and then look into assembling the drill. Alright, let's just test those a little bit. Right, now they're going round okay. I can't feel a tight spot. I think that's all okay. And obviously this is going to sit in the middle there. I'll add a tiny bit more grease so that that's got some on it. But I don't think it really needs all that much. This sits in there like that, and we're ready to try and assemble it. Right, as you can see, this has all been washed in warm soapy water. A little bit of scrubbing on the top here. Might have just dulled the finish a little bit because I wanted to get the white paint off that was on there. But overall you can see it's in quite good condition now that it's been cleaned, and the only obvious damage remains that little broken piece of plastic. I'm going to leave that for now and not do anything about that. Right. We've got this, and that needs to go, it's slotted, so it's got to go, oh there we go, in the right place and there, so we've got that to there. But the big problem we've got is where this lead goes. So we need to position this lead, and it runs across the bottom somewhere. Sorry I didn't show this bit going back into here, but it's taken me about 10 minutes to actually get everything back into place. I've put this little bit of plastic that fell out in there, the other one at this end. The circuit board goes into a slot at that end and a slot at this end. The switch is fairly straightforward, it can't go anywhere else. This is a complete nightmare because it keeps trying to miss the direction change switch, but I think that's because the top's not on yet, and getting this board in with this board and getting this to sit down, it uses that terminal on the bottom between two little plastic lugs there, so that terminal sits in that gap and that's what holds the motor still. It's a terrible design. If the motor tries to twist, it could just snap those plastic lugs, so it's an awful design. And having got that all the way to there, you can see that's not a nice fit, but it's the best I can manage. This still seems to want to flap about all over the place. And then you're left with trying to get this on. You can see the cable for the LED comes through underneath, so it ends up about there. But now you're stuck because you've got to try to twist the motor shaft to line up and get this thing to sit on. So it really is a fiddle once you get to this stage, because you get to this stage and then nothing wants to line up. You can see that whichever way I try to turn it, the things don't want to line up. Right, as you can see, I've managed to get all of that to line up, but the only way to get it to all line up was to leave the LED out, and of course now I can't get the LED in. So somehow I've got to keep everything in alignment, lift it up, pop the LED back in there where it belongs, lower it back down, and hope that the LED... See, there's nothing really holding the LED in place, it just gets squashed, or the wiring gets squashed, and then it's in. And the problem is once you've done that, you need a piece of double-sided tape on here and a piece of double-sided tape on the other side, and of course the piece that's on the other side needs to be under there. So now I've got to try and separate this a little bit, get the double-sided tape on. I think what I'm going to do for the purposes of this video is continue to assemble it back together without that piece of double-sided tape and without the other piece, just so that we can see that everything is working. Then I'll go back. So let's see if we can get this part to slip on. And there are so many parts that need to sit in place, because the motor's got to sit in the right spot, the circuit board's got to sit in the right spot, but at least 3 different places. The change direction switch has got to be in the right spot, and the on and off switch. And you can see at the moment we're not in the right spot because it simply won't go together. Oh, I think we've done it. I think it's gone together. As you can see, it's a bit like a Rubik's Cube. Everything's got to be in exactly the right spot. Right, now in theory, if we press that, so there's our light coming on, so that's okay. Now, is this all going to work now that we've cleaned up those cogs? So now we've got light, motor, one direction, it's a little bit noisy, but I think I'm going to let it run like that and see how it gets on. I've still got to try and get some double-sided tape underneath there and underneath there. Right, I've managed to lift this edge slightly, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of double-sided tape underneath there, like that. And then I'm going to try to massage it into position without disturbing anything too much. I mean, this really isn't ideal, but I just can't face pulling it apart, putting double-sided tape on it and pushing it back together again, given how long it's taken me to get it together in the first place. And somehow I need to get the backing piece off. Now this could be a complete disaster. Oh! I think we've done it. But how much has that come up? Alright, so I think we've got one side on. Now we need to do this side. Now this is the side I'm not looking forward to, because this is the side that all of the bits are attached to. Right, for those of you that care, I have cleaned the end of this a little bit. It wasn't actually rusty, it just got some rust on it from a screwdriver bit that was a bit rusty. Right, let's undo. Screw in, let's try that one. Screwed that in okay. I wouldn't say it's super fast. I think those extra gears have actually slowed it down. Undo. Yeah, I think if anything it's made it a little bit slower by having an extra set of gears in there, but it's all working fine. The only thing we have to do is put this label back. I won't bore you with that, but I'll put a bit of double-sided tape under there in a minute and stick that back on there, and we'll be done. Finished.